Hello everybody, Gisele Grenier here. In this video, I'm going to be working on an art journal page with the theme of botanicals, and that's from my botanicals journal. And what I'm doing with this is that for this particular journal, I'm experimenting with creating art on individual pages, then binding versus working in a journal that's already bound, which is what I usually do. So I've got a piece of scrapbook paper that I don't use, and I've measured it to that size. I think it's like 4 by 5, but I'm going to be gluing them back to back because the paper is very, very thin. I'm going to go over the supplies very quickly right now, but because I'm always changing things up, at the very end of the video, I'll cover out the supplies I actually end up using. So I've got Decoupage Chalky Gesso, the white, Decoupage Americana Decoupage Matte, the Decoupage Media Fluid Acrylics, Cerulean Blue, Phthalo Green Blue, Carbon Black, Titanium White, Decoupage Media Matte Medium. I've got a StazOn stamp pad. I've got some stamps here. I have no idea what these are. I don't know if they're Tim Holtz or but yeah, I don't know what these are or where they came from. So I'm going to be using the flowers out of that. And I've got my block, and I've got some it's this dictionary paper, and I wanted the paper to be white instead of beige because I'm going to be creating the washi color on this in a blue. Although the focal point that I have here is vintage, and that is gorgeous, I wanted to work with a contrasting color. It may work, it may not. When I start working on this, if it's totally inappropriate, I'll just change the focal point. But I know that I want the paper to be white and stands out. So first thing I'm going to do is get this stuff out of the way. Let's get this stuff out of the way. And I'm going to start with the Decoupage Medium. I'm going to glue this back to back. Then I'm going to, while that dries, then I'll pick the dictionary paper. So my brush is wet, and just putting that down, complete coverage, and then working center, outwards, and out. And I've got a little block. And you can use whatever you want. You can use scrapbook paper, you can, whatever. Just for me, I'm just doing this because the paper is very thin. It's also not even. I'm not worried about that. So I will cover that up. And I use the Decoupage Medium because it's much thinner. It's much thinner, and it seems to, whoopsie, my brush went flying, and it seems to dry much faster without even the need of the heat gun. And I've got my paper here because of the glare. So I'll put that aside. Now for the book paper, let me let's see if I can find something that says botanicals. How big is that? It won't fit all the way. Yeah. I'm going to take that. That was probably really loud on the microphone. Alright. So I don't have to wait for that to dry. So what I'm going to do is I will start. I'll put on an angle, and then I can cut it at the very, very edge. So, you know what? I'm going to... Oopsie. That's our weather warning. We just had a bad snowstorm. Okay, so I just turned my phone off. I forgot about it. Yeah, we got about, within 24 hours, depending on blowing snow, between 1 foot to 3 feet of snow. And nothing's been plowed, like everything's still pretty messy. And so the temperatures are going up today above 0, which means things are going to melt. And then they're plummeting this afternoon, which means everything's going to turn to ice. Yay! And I did that on the wrong side, didn't I? No. Alright, so I'm just going to grab some water. Yeah, I like using this stuff because it dries fairly quickly. And I want to make sure I get this side. What if I wrap that around? You know what? I'm going to do that. Why not? Yeah, not a fan of this paper. A little bit of water. I love using the lid for that. Shouldn't be dipping a waterlogged brush though in the bottle, because unless it's distilled water, you're going to get contaminants in there. But my bottle's almost empty. That. Oopsie, let's get that folded right. And I'm just going to fold it right over. Not going to worry about cutting corners. Because we end up collaging over this stuff anyways. And now it's even stronger. Stronger than ever before. It's like $6 Million Man. Yeah, I'm dating myself. Who here has watched The $6 Million Man and Bionic Woman? All right. So now I can cap that. And I didn't put anything on top of this, so I'm going to put this on the side to dry. Didn't take very long to dry. We're all good now. Oh, one thing I forgot to tell you, I've been experimenting with this. So I've got, so the mat that I'm using is a no-stick mat, and this is from Unstick, unstick.ca. And for those of you that watch Dragon Den, it was one of the products on Dragon's Den a few years ago. What I've done, because it's massive, I absolutely love it. So what I've done is I've taken my old Ranger mat and I cut it up because it was destroyed. And what I do is when this was starting to get tacky enough that I could still work with it, I put this on top and then use my little stick to push that down, and I was able to peel it quite easily. And it just takes experimenting though to find out, you know, the range of this being dry enough that you can still lift it up, but tacky enough that you can still push it down. All right, so that's that. And put that out of the way. So let's get to some paint. All right, so let me just clean up the paint there. So with the paint, I've got these and I'm thinking now, I'm wondering, I think I may want to set this back a little bit. I'm not sure. I was going to put a little bit of gesso, but I don't know if I want to do that. All right, so cerulean blue, phthalo green blue, carbon black, titanium white. So we're making a mix. And this, I wanted almost like a cerulean blue, but more on the green side. And you need very little of the green, the black, and the white. So I would say it's flattening out. I would say 2 parts of the cerulean blue and then half of the phthalo green blue, carbon black, and titanium white. Again, it's going to be a play to see if it works. And I've got a little card here so you can see the true underlying color. And a little bit of green. speck of black. The black just makes it a little bit duller. Too much black. Maybe not. And then just take some white. That's actually not bad. So yeah, so that's a pale. So I'm going to bring in more blue, more green, more black. Let's get more white in there. Nope, too much. So yeah, because I'm using such little amounts. All I want to do is tint the cerulean blue. There we go. Oh, I know. No, yeah. Phthalo blue on the side. Just a speck. So I've got the phthalo blue as well. So let's do that. Oh, yes, yes, yes. That's working perfectly. Nice. If you don't have cerulean blue, you can make cerulean blue with a closeness with phthalo blue. Sorry, yeah, phthalo blue, white, and a speck of phthalo green. There we go, like that. Now this is where things get interesting. Take some water, and I didn't do this right. I'll take a little bit of that, put that here. Take a little bit of that, put that here. And now water. Lots and lots of water. All right, so I'm going to dip the card, dip the paper. And I'm just going to take my baby wipe and just tap that. Now, remember, we didn't put any matte medium on this, so we don't have a barrier layer. I want the paint to soak into the paper so it creates a stain. I don't want to pull it up. And that's got a little bit too much paint in there. Okay, I'm going to dry that. This is a multi-layer style, but if you put matte medium on there, you'll be able to wipe it completely off. It makes the staining a little bit more difficult, but it can be done. It's a little bit more difficult. You can also do this with watercolors. The problem with the watercolors, though, is you got to be careful how you work with it. And let's see if we can get some water in there. I want it mixed up. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Let's do a dip in that. And I don't like that line. So let me just... Mia, stop! I just want to get some interesting shapes. Oh, I like that. Okay, I'm going to keep that. Now, if you let it dry naturally, you're going to get some nice real shapes here if your paper is relatively flat. Mine is a bit wonky, so my paper will get darker on the edges and lighter in the middle. I love that. If you take your heat gun or hair blower, you can guide some of the paint into different areas. So I can push it towards the middle, so it'll be lighter on the edges. I can push it down here. And this is a technique that I use, not so much with the heat gun, with the hair blower, when I'm working with some resin to create those beautiful blowouts. go. Love that look. And this, the beauty about this is that you can do this 10 times and you're going to get a different effect every single time. And then from here, I mean, I can choose to make it a little bit deeper. I can, you know, maybe not make it so deep. It's completely up to you how far you want to take this. I want to deepen just a little bit of this on the bottom. And that. There we go. I like that. Don't like that. Okay, so I need some of that black still. I need some of that black. Now, normally I would just add the black right into this paint here, but there's white in here, and I don't want any white in there at all. And this here, you can open it up, let it dry, and then once it's dry, rinse it out with water, and the paint will be permanent. But you'll get rid of any of the baby wipe cleaner that's in there, or moisturizer, whatever it's made from. Now, while that's drying, I also want to check to see where, there it is. Nice contrast there. There's a nice contrast. The reason why I chose the phthalo blue, phthalo green blues, and the cerulean blues, they're blues that lean towards green. If I would have used like ultramarine blue and a blue that was, or another blue that was more towards violet, that may have conflicted with this because this is yellowy green. So I want to try to keep it on the same side on the color wheel. So let's just dry that. So the next thing I want to do is I want to stamp in the corners. And see those beautiful lines? That's where you do the layers, but you want to make sure you don't always dip in the same spot all the time, because then you're just going to get solid color. That's why I like dipping different layers, especially when the paints are primarily transparent. And that's where the fluid acrylics really work out well for that. Let's move that down a bit to get a nice little stripe. Where the paint is thicker, you're going to have that beautiful line like that. Now the page, see how the page is curling? It's because it's not quite dry on the back. It'll flatten out. And it's also the dictionary paper is contracting. Alright. Now let me just blot that up. Yeah, see, it's still a little bit tacky. There we go. Whoopsie, why did I do that? Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, let me get... I might be able to get some of that black paint. Alright, so I want to stamp. Let me get this paint out of the way. Don't need that yet. So what I'm looking at doing, this is where you have to make sure this is bone dry. So I'm looking at that there. And I just want to put, let's see, this one and this one. Yeah. So I'll do this one first. You can do like just patterns as well. You don't have to do an actual like an actual thing. You know, that might... Okay, well, I'll keep that for another video. I gotta try to stay focused. I was gonna say you could do like chicken wire or something. I should have did an off stamp. Oh, actually, it's good. That's good. And I'll just go. All right, that takes care of that one. And this one. Oh, this one, I don't think I've used this one yet. It's just stuck on there. This packaging is not made for people with arthritis. No, I've never used this one. What if I just do it like that? Oh, that's kind of pretty. Just get some there. And we'll put that back. All right. That takes care of that. I mean, you can do whatever you want. You can stencil if you want. That's no problem at all. Okay, so I don't need the gesso, so I'm going to put the gesso away. Oops, that was kind of loud. Okay, while that's drying, what I'm going to do is I'm going to edge the card, and I could do it a contrasting color. So with a contrasting color, let me see. I never. Oh goodness! Typically, we go to transparent yellow iron oxide. That's my absolute favorite, but it's quite intense. So let's do a little test. So I'm going to take a tiny little dot of each one. Come on. Whoops, too much. How many pieces of paper did I grab? And I have all this done in the journal already, but it's so the transparent yellow iron oxide is much more, well, just that, transparent. So depending, I'm going to use that one, which is transparent yellow iron oxide. So with that, I'm going to grab a sponge. Now, before I get started, I want to put a barrier layer on this. This is already edged up a little bit. It looks like something almost the same as burnt umber. And I want to put a barrier layer on that in case the color doesn't work out. Very, very thin layer. Now I'm using the Decoupage Medium Matte Medium because it is much thicker. And for a barrier layer, to me, it just works better than the Decoupage Medium. You can also use this as a ground. And anything that calls for clear gesso, this does the same thing. All right. Because it's much thicker, it doesn't just sink into the water. Didn't sink into the paper, I should say. Let me just quickly try that. You can also do the back as well. Just plain paper. I'm not going to worry about it. And see how it's curled? That'll flatten out as it dries. Here, see? There, perfectly straight. All right, so let's grab. Oh, that's going to need more than that. Come on. Seriously. Which means I'm running out. And what I can do is see if I can put a lot on there and I can just wipe it right off because of that barrier coat. But with that barrier layer, you need to let this dry a little bit longer. because the paint is sitting on top. Perfect color choice. Now, if you wanted to as well, let me get a bit of a close-up here. If you wanted to as well, you could get all the extra out of that sponge, and you can come in and just carefully, from the outside in, with light pressure. It's easy to add, much harder to take away, and you can bring that in to create a vignette effect. A vignette effect. Like that, to darken it up a little bit more. Make it more vintage. And one thing, okay, let me ask you this. I've noticed, and I don't think this is new, but I've noticed that a lot more people are into creating vintage art. Why is that? Why do you think that is? Why do you think people are into creating vintage art? Is that because the times we're in now with technology is taking over the world, or I don't know. Now, I could take a baby wipe and just blot a little bit of this out. See with that barrier layer, I can clean that out and just have a highlight right in the middle. I can pick and choose. Nice. Barely anything came off, but it was just such a light layer. But if you wait hours, like when the paint is cured, this isn't going to work. You have to do this while the paint is wet. So I'm going to put the raw sienna away. Didn't use that. Yeah, I'm almost out of the oxide. And yeah, look how much that stands out. I wanted something with a lot of contrast. So now with the black, I'm going to get a round brush. Let me zoom back out. Let me get my brush nice and wet in clean water. And I really want to make that washy, really, really washy. And just splatter. That takes care of that. And then into a little bit of the green. Like really wash that green. Make it really washy. You know what? And I'm going to do some, okay, now I am going to bring out the gesso. I am going to bring this out because it's opaque, but I have it in a smaller tube. Just a tiny bit. I'm going to do the same thing. Get some little white splatters in there. Whoops, I've got some green in there. Yeah, that does it. Now, if you don't like splatter, not everybody likes the splatter effect. You can take your brush and just dip. It'll take a little bit longer, but you can just dip your brush, the end of the brush, into the paint. Okay. All that's left now is to do the edges of the card and glue that on. I want to lighten this up a little bit. It's a little bit heavy, so I'm going to take some Decoupage Medium gesso. Now this gesso is nice and thick. This one's really nice and thick. I can use white paint as well, but the fluid acrylics are too thin. And I could use the Decoupage Traditions gesso as well, or white paint. And I'm just going to grab a little sponge, and I have a stencil. This is the Andy Skinner stencil called Bubbles. And I just want to stencil very lightly in this area here. But when I say light, I mean light. I don't want the paint to be washy because inky paint seeps underneath the stencil. And I'm just blotting on a paper towel. And not enough paint. Not enough gesso, I should say. these stencils are really thick. Yeah, that's one thing I found out is that the stencils that are thick when you're using washi paint is that it gets right underneath. But when the paint is drier, or the gesso is drier, and you just pat it in, that you get the nice impressions. So I think I want that a little bit heavier. And I'm going to try with a brush. I don't like using a brush with doing these thick stencils. Ooh, I like that. Looks like paint splatters through the holes. Yeah, just keep it light. Nice. We'll do the same thing here. I'm pouncing the brush on the paper towel. You can also use texture paste if you want. Oh, texture paste. Let's get some of these. Yeah, the stencil is so thick. It's there we go. Just something just to lighten it up a little bit. And that's that. All right, I'm just going to quickly give my stencil a wipe. And let's quickly dry that. Now, because the card already has the words on it, I'm not going to bother adding a quote to this. But I do want to add something else to the background because it just seems to be floating. So I do want to add something in here. Now, normally what I would do with that is some tissue paper. Just to kind of push everything back. So I'm going to get some tissue paper and I'm going to get a stamp just to show you two different options. So I've got a piece of tissue that I've stamped and I just took a random cutting out of it and just to show you that it really obsesses. Now when this gets wet, it is going to be more transparent. What I want to do though is I've got this chicken wire stamp from Kaisercraft, and I just want to add right here. So I'm just going to there we go, just like that, just to add a little bit more. You don't have to, it all depends on your individual piece. And if that doesn't work, then I can always grab another piece. So that's what I'm thinking right there. And then the piece will sit on top. It's just a little bit, just popping out from behind. So let's grab, doesn't really matter if I use Decoupage Medium or Matte Medium at this point. All right. Bigger brush. I need a bigger brush. So I'm going to put that. So this is why I like using acrylic paints, because if you were using water solubles, this would all be all messed up. And this is super thin, so I'm going to kind of get it placed right about there. And I don't care if it's wrinkled. That actually would add a little bit more texture if it was wrinkled. What I don't want are air bubbles. See how it becomes transparent? So what I'm going to do is tear this piece off, and I can just add it another piece, and you can still see the stenciling that I did. And let's just put this one right there. There we go. Now, the decoupage medium is stickier because it dries much faster. So once you start using that, make sure you wipe your hands. Quickly just clean the top of the bottle if need be. You know, the inside as well. Just give it a wipe. I've heard some people, they use like a plastic wrap in between. Do whatever you need to do just to keep your hands clean. This is going to need now one of those no scratch scrubby pads. My hands. This stuff is so strong. And yeah, that's going to look nice. Now, normally we would say, well, if you have to glue this, you don't have to wait for this to dry. I want this to be flat before I glue that. So I'm just going to quickly dry this. And then I'll add the card. I may add some words to it. I'm not sure. But I love how this kind of set everything back. I love how that sets back. There we go. What would be neat is if there was, we had little flowers here. This is the journal, so it's going to be relatively flat. So I really don't have anything I can use to make it three-dimensional. Now, if this was a piece of canvas, you could put little flowers here, and just to show you, you could take you know, little flowers, and you can put them, you know, in the corners here. If it was like a mixed media, like a thicker piece. I've got paper flowers as well that I picked up. Oh, there's a vellum flower. Well, that's kind of interesting. So you'd have to have something flat. The black doesn't, oh, the black is kind of interesting too, but that's too strong. But yeah, so, you know, I've even got these burlap ones, and just looking at your stash, not buying anything new. Now that's kind of pretty. That's kind of pretty. What about the brown one? No, that's pretty. I like that. I like that. But it depends on what you're using for your artwork. So, but it is lacking something, right? I'm not sure if it's lacking, if it's the words, or maybe the card is wrong. I don't know. So I'm going to take a few minutes to think about it. And if I'm just going to go with it, I'm going to glue it down. Otherwise, I'm just going to edge the corners and go from there. Yep, all I had to do was pick something else to go under the card to bring the colors together. Now what I'm doing is going over, now this is my second pass of going over with burnt umber. Just to edge that. And I also did a pass on this card as well, the burnt umber. And I also quickly just touched the edges like this with burnt umber with a little cosmetic sponge, and it gently pushes some of the paint into some of the areas. It's not perfect, it's just irregular. See? And then this one here. So these, I have no idea where I got these. I don't know if they're one of the ephemera packs or whatever. But I don't know. But it is already cut out. I hate fussy cutting stuff. I hate fussy cutting stuff. So the burnt umber, the purpose is to tie that into the edge of the card and to tie it into the warmthness of the label. And put that in water. So what I'm looking at, so yeah, it just stood out too much. It was the only thing of that color. So when I found that, I thought, okay, we've got the white of the paper. We do have the green in the leaves, which pulls that in, and a tiny bit of the pink that pulls that in. I thought, yeah, that's covered up a bit though. So I wanted to find something else that had a little bit more of the blue and the pinks. I found this one, and I initially put it on the bottom like this, but then this gets covered up. So I thought L-shaped composition, I could always do it like that. Just like that. So you can do it. So what I like about this is that it comes down, but you could also do it like that. So this really brings out a lot of the pink. There we go. Let me just turn that a bit. So I'm thinking like that. Like that. So that's what I'm going to do. Now I'm not going to use the matte medium. I'm going to use, where is it? This exhausts me. You know that when I can't find stuff? I want to find my liquid glass. I could also use a my glue gun. Actually, that might be better to use a glue gun. But, oh, there it is. Right in front of my stupid face. So this is nice and thick, but it always plugs up. I'm just going to poke that in there. So it goes on thick, and so it'll raise a little bit from the paper, the journal page, and then this as well. You don't need a lot. That was clumsy of me. Look what I just did. Okay, let's get this positioned. And I didn't go all the way to the edge because I can move it around. I know that was right about here. And see, if I put it underneath, I'm going to lose the green leaf. If I put it on top, it doesn't make sense. So let's try that there. And let's go here. Just dropping it, not putting it down too hard. So I'm just going to tilt that a little bit. And yep, that looks good. So now I'm going to press it down. And the liquid glass is just that. It's dries like glass. So if it comes out from the edge, it's no big deal. I'm going to press it down just enough so there's, oops, some adhesion. And then if you want it to be raised up, you can just let it, it'll come back up a little bit. And see, it's already starting. And or use pop dots. So, but I like using the liquid glass for this because it's a really good glue. I'm going to keep it relatively flat because in the journal it's going to be flat anyways. And then once it's dry, I can come in like this part here and just put a dot. And that's going to have to be held down. So I will finish this up, and when we come back, we'll see what it looks like, all nice and dry. I might come in and edge the sides a bit, again, because it's not strong enough, but we'll see. But as it is right now, it is looking pretty good. But yeah, I'm not going to put a quote on there because I've got the words, but I like what's there. It was just basically, the book is going to be just things about flowers, botanicals. I'm waiting for it to be a little bit easier to walk outside with all that snow, and I'm going to take some pictures, and I can create even a little landscape painting in here. But there we go. Like that. See how I got a little bit of the shine in there? Gorgeous. So it just took a little bit of extra something just to bring it out. And then so I'm going to look here. So I've got the white, the blue. There's really nothing blue in the actual embellishments, although there's a little bit of blue here. But I've got the white, I've got some of the pink, I've got some of the green. So we're good on that. If I wanted to really tie in the blue, I could have edged this blue, but I don't think that would have been appropriate. I could turn around and edge this green to bring into the green, but I don't think that would work either. So I could just take a little bit of that black that's here, really blot that out, and just touch that in there very, very carefully, just to really deepen that up. And then, you know, when you say, oh, what if you did this, or what if you did this, what if you did this, and it's not a matter of just what if, you have to do it. You have to do it. So I would love to see your take. I'm not even have to wait for this to dry because it's already dry. I would love to see your take on this project. You don't have to use the same supplies. You don't have to use, you know, just use a similar technique. And if you don't have any embellishments you can pull from, go to graphicsfairy.com. She has such a wide resource of stuff on her website, absolutely phenomenal, for free. She has a membership as well, but a lot of the nice, you can get some really nice stuff for free. So there we go. And the little flower overlaps this. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm liking this just the way it is. So let me grab a piece of cardstock just to, so you can see it without all the distractions. So let's get a close up here. Let's get this out of the way. I like seeing it from a different point of view. There we go. There we are. So there we go. That's a little too close. There we go. All right. So you can see a little bit of shine in there. Beauty. So that's where the challenge is with creating this by itself. So now when I kind of have to put it together, do a few pages, then start putting them in order. So now when I turn this over, you know, whatever I put here, you know, to be cohesive, they can be individual. It doesn't matter. There's no rules. Or you can just make your journals all one-sided. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But I'm really glad that I added this in to the piece, because that really makes it pop. It was too blue and it just made it pop. I wasn't sure about the yellowness of the focal point to the blue, but I like that contrast. Like, I love art that's vintage, but I like the, you know, taking stuff that's completely opposite, like a modern grungy with soft and vintage. I like doing stuff like that. So, but try the technique to see, you know, how that works out for you, doing your own take. Now, the supplies I ended up using, I brought quite a few out. Let's just bring those out here. And okay, book paper. That wasn't for sure. Where did okay, the book paper's somewhere. I don't know where, but the book paper to collage onto the stock. Let me just back this out. Scrapbook paper. Scrapbook paper, doesn't matter what it is, just dictionary book paper. You don't know where to get some, just go to, you know, if you're in Canada, Value Village, something like that, you can get some. The one I got was destined for the garbage bin. So some stencils, doesn't matter what they are, just, or stencils and stamps is just, you know, whatever, just to create some visual texture. Chicken wire from Kaisercraft, Andy Skinner mixed media stencil bubbles, a stays on pad, and flower stamps. Again, you don't have to, you can sketch it out by hand if you want. I don't know if this is Tim Holtz. I don't know, bought it such a long time ago. Decoupage Chalky Gesso, the white, Decoupage Americana Decoupage Matte, Decoupage Media Matte Medium, and Decoupage Media Gesso. These are the same, similar, but I apply it differently. This dries super fast, and this is great for a barrier layer. This is very thin. This is much thicker. So I like stenciling with this one, and this one's very hard to stencil with because it makes a mess. Decoupage Medium Fluid Acrylics, Transparent Yellow Iron Oxide, Titanium White, Phthalo Blue, Phthalo Green Blue, Cerulean Blue, and Carbon Black. And this is great for splatter as well because it's not so transparent as that. Little Mr. bottle, palette paper, palette knife, paintbrushes, cosmetic sponges. You know, those are typical supplies. But that's it, you guys. So I look forward to seeing your version of this. And, you know, make a theme-based journal. That way it's easier to focus on making stuff and stuff to pull out. And if you're stuck for inspiration, go into your stash and just look at something. And the first thing that jumps out at you that you, oh, I really like this, make a journal page around that focal point or that background paper or that piece of fodder or ephemera or whatever you want to call it. All right. So I'm going to clean up, get ready for another project. So until I see you in the next lesson, stay inspired.